Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Points. Bunch of stuff going on today, Emily.
This is a very full show.
Oh yeah, we kept adding things up until like the time I went to bed last night. And
then afterwards.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Elon was up. Elon was tweeting.
The Tesla board was tweeting. Lots of things were unfolding. Before we get to that, so that I don't forget, Spotify users, I know some of you guys are still having issues getting the video to load. We are talking to Spotify, trying to work it out. We're kind of at the whims of these tech giants, so please bear with us. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're doing everything we possibly can to resolve it. Because when it works, it is a great experience on Spotify, so we're going to keep working on that. All right, in the show today, we have a Ukraine minerals deal. We have the latest with regard to tariffs, including Donald Trump basically going full Grinch mode, saying no more dolls for little girls.
Totally support this. The girls can only have 2 dolls. He said maybe you'd have 30, but now you only have 2.
Now you have 2.
We'll play the video. It's something.
It's really something. As we were mentioning, Elon, there was a report from the Wall Street Journal that Tesla is looking for a new CEO. Elon and the Tesla board now disputing that, but obviously that is a remarkable turn of events, and Tesla stock has been plummeting in the Trump 2.0 era, and their sales have fallen off a cliff because Elon is so toxic, et cetera. So a lot to get into there. We've got some developments with regard to deportations, including New York Times had a good story about Bekele and this deal that he cut with the Trump administration to house what he was insisting had to be criminals, and was apparently, reportedly, according to this report, upset at the fact that the people that they sent to him did not have criminal records. There had been nothing adjudicated in the courts, or at least many of them did not. So interesting insights there. Also, one of the pro-Palestine foreign students who had been arrested and detained has now been released. And what the judge says about that is also quite extraordinary and would have huge implications if this is upheld, in higher level courts, huge implications for all of the foreign students who have been detained simply for their speech with regard to Palestine. So that's a really important one. We're going to have Dave Weigel join us to do a little rundown of the early 2028 Dem contenders. JB Pritzker, Big JB, out there making moves.
Can we call him Meatball JB? That's inappropriate.
We got to come up with something original. You can't have Ron DeSantis' nickname.
Yeah,
come on, Emily. Do better.
You're not right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But he got asked, Weigel actually asked him an interesting question about
well,
are you an oligarch? And so his answer was pretty interesting and revealing. Andy Bashir's out there. Gretchen Whitmer is out there, but with Donald Trump, apparently. And not the best political instincts I've ever seen.
Bashir's on Fox News. Whitmer is giving speeches in front of Trump.
Trump's 100-day rally.
Things are weird, yep.
So lots of different tactics being deployed by these early contenders. I wanted to get this story into the show. Mark Andreessen made some crazy not crazy, perfect comments about AI, where basically he said he thinks AI is going to replace everyone but him.
Yeah.
Venture capitalists will be the only ones who are not replaced by AI.
The valuable people.
That's right.
Yeah, the people who create wealth.
Truly irreplaceable, that industry.
No computer could ever.
These guys are amazing. And we want to try to get to some comments from Alex Jones, a little critique of Trump alongside Fuentes, who's long been critiquing Trump from the right as a Nazi, Trump not being Nazi enough. So, but anyway, kind of interesting there, and fits with some of the other little critiques that you've seen come out of MAGA world vis-a-vis Trump.
Yeah, this is a big show, and part of it is because, Krystal, you just had to get Mark Andreessen in there. Couldn't resist.
I can't resist that cone hand. What can I say?
Looking forward to it. It'll be good. Let's start with the mineral deal in Ukraine. We can put the first element up on the screen. Breaking news yesterday. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Ukraine-U.S. sign economic deal for minerals, and the journal's subheading there is the two countries finally reached an agreement after several false starts. You'll remember the mineral deal is what was on the table when Zelensky visited the White House, and the infamous Oval Office meeting transpired just a couple of months ago. Now they're back at it. They finally got that deal signed, which I think, Krystal, was very predictable that it was ultimately going to happen. The fits and starts felt more like personal hurdles for Zelensky and Trump to both overcome in order to feel confident that it made sense.
I don't even know personal hurdles, more like posturing.
Yep.
Because the reality is there's an incredible quote here from this woman, Heidi Kribo-Redeker, senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, who says this is a win-win deal because, quote, the U.S. will have a vested interest in the geology that the Ukrainians will be fighting for. And this is what Zelensky had been pushing, this is what Lindsey Graham had actually been presenting, as a way to keep the Trump administration invested in Ukraine and committed to Ukraine. This is seen as a security guarantee. It's being explicitly pitched as such, with the idea being that if you have a bunch of American capitalists, American billionaires who are profiting off of the minerals in Ukraine, that they are de facto then backing up the Ukrainian government, and that, you know, that would act as a deterrent for Russia continuing to fight. And, you know, it would basically create a situation where, some billionaires who are tied to Trump can make a lot of money. And if things go sideways again, America will once again be on the hook for defending Ukraine, whether that's through continued weapons shipments or whether it would ultimately be through, you know, sending soldiers. I don't want to I don't want to fearmonger here, but that's effectively the dynamic that's being set up. This would be a long-term engagement in the future of Ukraine, which is why, you know, it's what Zelensky wanted, it's what Lindsey Graham wanted, et cetera. And I always thought that the show in the Oval with Zelensky, you and I differed on this, Sagar and I differ on this as well, but my analysis at the time was that this was a way for Trump to give some red meat to the base, because he had this big blow up and he's yelling at Zelensky and all of these sorts of things, which, you know, the base was very happy about because they've turned Zelensky into this villain. You know, they overtly dislike Ukraine and want Trump to completely break with them. So he gave them that. But in the end, the result is exactly what was pitched from the beginning.
Yeah, the Journal says there's a distinction that was previously, so it doesn't require Ukraine to repay past military aid, and that, I suppose, is a pretty significant change, but not dramatic. I mean, it's definitely a new thing, but it also includes, as Wall Street Journal says, the U.S. being able to count new military aid into Ukraine as a contribution to the fund. So it makes sense that they were able to reach this deal at this point. Obviously, it's not the level of security guarantee that Zelensky was fairly insistent on. That's what blew up the original deal, is that Zelensky didn't feel comfortable with a mineral deal as a security guarantee. But it is seen as by the White House as, this is how the Journal puts it, quote, a kind of security guarantee for Ukraine. And I suppose that's true, because there would be significant U.S. business, there will be significant U.S. business interests on the table in Ukraine for, this is a 10-year deal, but for the foreseeable future. Also, Krystal, a pretty interesting question about what exactly exists to be mined.
Right.
How much actually is there?
There was some reporting that Zelensky was kind of overselling what is actually there. Now, it also could be possible that it's not fully known, it's not fully mapped out what sort of minerals are there. I was also wondering if the trade war has put a little bit of pressure on the Trump administration to get this mineral deal done, because China's, of course, cutting off the supply of some of the rare earth minerals that would presumably be available within Ukraine. So that may have also provided some of the impetus to get this signed at this point. And I should also say, as we're recording this, we don't actually have all the details. There's a few details in this Wall Street Journal report. There's been a few details that are out there publicly. We saw a previous draft that included not only minerals rights, but basically that the U.S. would effectively economically colonize Ukraine with control over, half of ports and half of a lot of economic activity in the country in perpetuity, out above and beyond the minerals rights. But as of yet, we don't know if that is what is entailed in this deal that was ultimately signed or not. So we'll await the details. At the same time, Lindsey Graham is in the Senate pushing, an even more aggressive sanctions regime against Russia in an attempt, I guess, to get them to come to the table. They seem to be quite resistant to coming to any sort of deal at this point, because they have the upper hand in this war, including, bombing Kyiv in a way that required Trump to weigh in with his Vladimir stop tweet. But let's put Lindsey up on the screen here. He's forging ahead, they say, on a plan to impose new sanctions on Russia, steep tariffs on countries that buy Russian oil, gas, and uranium, as Trump struggles to fulfill his campaign promise to end the war. In terms of the votes, it looks like Lindsey Graham does have the votes in the Senate. Of course, that doesn't guarantee that it would be brought to the floor. You would need, John Thune to decide that this needs to be brought to the floor. By the end of the week, Lindsey Graham is predicting the bill will have at least 67 co-sponsors. That would be enough to override even a potential presidential veto. Trump himself has not weighed in on this potential bill that Lindsey Graham is working on. But I mean, we already threw a lot of sanctions at Russia. We threw effectively the entire sanctions playbook at Russia, and it didn't have no impact. There was an impact, but it was not nearly what economists expected. And in fact, it really ended up demonstrating a lot of impotence on the part of the U.S. because it showed that you could throw the entire sanctions playbook at Russia or at any nation, and that they would be able to survive and they would be able to withstand that. And I think it also gave China even a bit of a dry run of what this could look like if there was the sort of trade war, the sort of complete economic cutoff that they're facing from us right now. So interesting, not surprising from Lindsey Graham taking an even more aggressive hawkish approach, but that's what's on the table now.
Well, yeah, and it's important to, I actually think it's a really important story to tack on to the context of signing this deal, because the hopeful, even though this involves colonizing Ukrainian mineral resources, and by the way, I mean, apparently they have 20 of 50 critical minerals that we consider critical, so that's like lithium and graphite, titanium, uranium, to your point, rare earth minerals that could have something to do with, there could be added incentives based on the tariff struggles in the last couple of months from the Trump administration. But they're also incredibly corrupt. This was the entire Republican argument against Burisma and Hunter Biden. And so it's definitely putting the United States into a complete economic mess that has military implications in Ukraine. But hopefully what this means, at the very least, and it's not nothing, is that we're on a glide path to an actual ceasefire so that the thousands of people who are dying every single day, that those further lives can be saved, because these battle lines are probably going to be, whatever ceasefires eventually reach, it's probably going to look like where the battle lines are right now, in all likelihood. So Lindsey Graham continuing to saber rattle seems super unhelpful to the entire purpose of inking this particular deal, but we'll see where things go.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think there's a lot of question marks. It's hard to see. It doesn't feel like we're terribly close to a ceasefire at this point, but you never know where we're going to end up. And certainly by signing this minerals deal, you are committing the U.S. to Ukraine for the long term, so that a bunch of billionaires can get their stuff and get their rare earth minerals out of the ground and benefit from it.
This is another thing the Journal had a story on not long ago, is that Chevron and Shell have tried to mine in Ukraine, but the corruption in Ukraine has made it extremely difficult for that process to be done in a way that's profitable for them. And so now we're just going even fully more into the experiment of trying to extract minerals from Ukraine in an effort to stop a brutal conflict that would further, I mean, if the United States sees this as a potential security guarantee, that is a really scary thing, actually.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're at the whims of Ukrainian oligarchs. I mean, we'll have more control over them now at this point, although we always had control over them. But that's what's so gross about this, is that it's just American oligarchs mingling their interests with Ukrainian oligarchs, and the lives of thousands of people hang in the balance based on not just the military concerns, but also the economic concerns. So it's definitely not the cleanest solution to this war, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, Americans don't understand the word oligarchs, so I don't think they're really going to be able to grasp what's going on here, Emily.
They don't watch enough Breaking Points.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.